We really want to start because we're a little late. Since the beginning of the camp, we have been talking science. So now we are going to talk a little bit about business, but in correlation with science, of course. In fact, we're going to hear a lecture by Mr. Yaacov Michlin. He is the CEO of Yissum. Yissum is the company which belongs to the Hebrew University and works inside the Hebrew University to facilitate the transfer of scientific knowledge into technologies that can be used and sold. So we are going to see this aspect of science, which is also the connection to the market and to the economic world. So, Mr. Michlin, please.
Good afternoon to all of you. Actually, when the organizing committee asked me to speak today, I didn't know that I will be the only one which is not a professor that is lecturing today and actually during the entire days. And then I found out another thing, that I'm after lunch, so I see myself as part of the culture and entertainment and not the scientific part. But after I saw the nice movies yesterday and David Deor, so I cannot sing, so we'll have to, I hope you will enjoy the lecture. But I promise you one thing, to those of you that will listen carefully to my lecture, at the end of my lecture we will have a 4-minute movie, not as nice as the one yesterday, but I think you will enjoy it. So welcome to Israel. I must admit that I was invited to many places that you come from Seoul and Singapore, and even Kazakhstan to give lectures about tech transfer. And this is what I'm going to do today with you. A short, brief introduction. Last week we had a very interesting visit of the CEO of Procter & Gamble, and he spoke for 3 minutes in a special dinner, and he said, Israel is a country with a lot of technologies and an excellent academia. But so what can a company like Procter & Gamble contribute and do together with the Israeli academic institution and the startup? And he said that one of the problems that they identified in Israel, that we have excellent technologies, but no one wants them. So he said Procter & Gamble is a company that is looking at the consumer and links the science and the technology and the needs of the consumer. So this is a good introduction for me to explain to you the basics of what a tech transfer company does. For one end, we have in the university brilliant researchers and excellent basic research and basic science, like the one that you heard before by Professor Idan Segev. Until 2030, we will have a computer imitating the human brain. Amazing. But how do we contribute to the society in 2 or 3 years from now? How do we do it, and why do we do this? Second thing is that when you look at the success stories of Israel, and I'll get to it later on, you ask yourself, how come the 7 universities in Israel, and led by the Hebrew University, which as I hope that you already know that we are the leading university as a research university in Israel, and how can it be that 7 universities have such wonderful achievements that you'll see here in the presentation? What is the secret behind this? So I'll try to answer a few of these questions along my presentation, but let's conclude at the beginning 2 things that probably are not relevant, or maybe relevant very little. What I mean by this is many people talk about the the Jewish genetics and the heritage. So in an article published last week, I saw that the Asian students are, there are much more Asian students in the leading universities in the US than Jewish students. One piece of data. The second one is, maybe you can say that the Hebrew University and the other universities in Israel has wonderful budget, and they can support the research. So the entire R&D budget of the Israeli universities altogether is less than $700 million a year, which is less than one university in the US. So after having said all of this, so how does this get along with the slide that you see here? What you see here is just the outcome of 3 universities in Israel, and 2 of these drugs, the Exelon and the Doxil, are coming from the Hebrew University, 6 together from only 3 universities out of the 7. And you can say, okay, so you are very good in biotech, but what about this? All of these inventions also come from the Israeli universities. So then the story becomes complicated. It's not only biotech, it's also other things. How come? So probably many of you already heard, and at least maybe you even read this book, but the famous book Startup Nation. If you read the book Startup Nation, it talks there about the fact that the Israelis go to the army, and they serve in the army, and they learn leadership, and there are special units. But it's all nice stories. There's nothing in the army that prepares you to develop drugs or to do other things that we are so good in doing it. So this is not this. So what is it? Now, more information. If you look at the success stories in the biotech area in Israel, you'll see that we have wonderful achievements. Over 700 life sciences companies. We have export of over $6 billion. And we are second in Europe in number per capita of private biotech companies. By the way, I don't know if you know this information, but on the NASDAQ, Israel is the second country, except for the US, in numbers of companies traded on the NASDAQ. So we are only 7 million people, about 7 million people in Israel, only 7 universities with a budget of less than $700 million. So what is the story of the success? And now another piece of information. You can say that maybe we are filing a lot of patents, but they are not granted. And you cannot measure the granting of patents per capita. But then comes this information, and you see that in terms of granted patents, Israel is number 1 in the world, even before the US. So it means not only that we are the best filer of patents per capita, but we also have very good patents and very good science taking place in the universities. Another important piece of information, we have a small stock exchange in Israel, nothing compared to the large stock exchange like the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange or even some stock exchanges in Europe or in Toronto. But if you look at this, we have 29 public companies that are part of the Biomed Index, and I'm not counting the big ones like Teva and companies like this. 19 out of these come from universities. We are proud to say, and this is just an introduction, we are sitting in the Hebrew University, so I must say that we have a very significant contribution to these companies that you can see here. Colplant, Bioland partially, Intec Pharma, and Nasvax are companies based on technologies coming from the Hebrew University. Another interesting information, the Israeli government, every citizen likes to criticize his government, and this is the trend in Israel. But in this case, I think that we have to praise the Israeli government, because the Israeli government understood that there is a lot of potential in the Israeli universities, and we have to help the Israeli universities and help them with budget in order to promote the basic research, so it will not stay just in the lab, but it will actually take place and become a drug in the market or a medical device or the device by Mobileye or your disk on keys. Something has to happen. So the Israeli government initiated a project called the Incubator Companies. We have 26 incubators spread all around Israel. In each incubator we have about 12 to 13 companies. And you can see here a spread of these companies coming only from universities. And I'm focusing here on this lecture how our universities in Israel, and especially the Hebrew University, create so many products that are useful to the consumers. So you can see the vast of the companies is from biotechnology, but not only. We have also medical devices and others. Now, some data, and now we are getting to the stage that I have to show you that we have excellent universities in Israel in general, but Hebrew University is still the leading university. So if you look at the success stories and the achievements of the Israeli tech transfer companies, so we produce more than 1 billion shekels a year in terms of revenues from products sold around the world. Yissum and the Hebrew University, we are number 2. We also collaborate with the industry, and we produce about 100 million shekels a year only from collaboration with companies. And you have to, again, bear in mind, we have only 7 universities. And in this case, Yissum and the Hebrew University is number 1. We have about 150 technologies licensed each year from the academia to companies all around the world. In this case, also, Yissum and the Hebrew University is, again, number 1. We have an average of 15 companies based on technologies coming from the university established every year. Again, Yissum and the Hebrew University, number 1. And the bottom line is two tech transfer institutions in Israel, Yeda of Weizmann Institute and Yissum, we are considered to be 1 or 2 of the top 10 tech transfer companies in the world. So again, 7 universities, limited budgets, and such great achievements. We have one organization that from 2 weeks ago, I happen to be also the chairman of the organization. It's called ITTN, that it brings together all the tech transfer companies. And if you take a look at it, you have the names of all the tech transfer companies. And again, you see the significant part of Yissum, which is 40%. Now, why all of this happens? The Hebrew University is actually the only university in Israel that decided in the decision of the Senate that we support the applied research. In our university, it's common to say we don't distinguish between basic research and applied research. We distinguish between good science and bad science. And therefore, we do not know how to put the border and where to draw the line, but we support good science with the hope that the good science will create products for the benefit of the society. And the participation and the taking part in inventing patents and collaborating with industries and companies, this is part of the promotion of the professors and the doctors becoming professors in the university. And we are the only university in Israel supporting it. This is one of the reasons. The second, the other, I'll get later on to other reasons supporting this. So what do we do and how do we do this? First of all, we have to understand the mission of Yissum as a tech transfer company. Our mission is to transfer the knowledge of the Hebrew University and the technologies for the benefit of society. So now where we are talking about benefit of society, for society we have the concept of maybe doing, for example, software on open source and giving everything to everyone for free. But there are limits to this. For example, if you are developing drugs, if you'll give the patents for free, or you will not register a patent and you won't have the market exclusivity, there won't be a drug on the market. So we are balancing between things, and we have to bear in mind that the money that comes back to the university from the royalties serves for the research of the university. Now we look at the researcher as the basic, the most important asset of the university, and we split the capabilities of the researcher into 2. First of all, and what you see on your left side, is the laboratory capabilities, meaning the collaborative research with the university. We produce about 60 million shekels a year from this, which is number 1 in Israel. And this is part of the activities. But the most interesting activities are the available technology. When a researcher comes with an available technology or potential technology that has a commercial feasibility, we either license it to a large company, international or local company, or we create a spin-off company. So these are the ways that we approach the researcher. Any successful tech transfer must have a very good university that is the producer of the technologies and the IP. So the Hebrew University, as I told you already, you probably know, was established in 1925. And you saw yesterday in the nice movies about the origin, so I won't get into this again. But some information, 43% of the Israeli biotech research is done in the Hebrew University. We have about 1/3 of the PhD students in Israel, and that makes us at the Hebrew University the largest research university in Israel. Now, in terms of international ranking, we have the Shanghai ranking of universities. I assume that you are familiar with this. So the Hebrew University is by far the number 1 university in Israel, number 53 in the world, and only 2 other universities in Israel managed to get into the 100 universities. Heritage of excellence. You saw yesterday, and you probably will not forget that Einstein was one of the initiators of our university, but in addition to Professor Einstein, we had a few Nobel laureates, and we have Turing Award winners, and recently the Fields Prize in Mathematics, and a prize in physics that does not appear here. But we have many achievements. Why do I mention it? Because even the most applied research-oriented university must have excellent basic research and excellent researchers. You cannot apply the technology when you don't have excellent science and excellent scientists within the university. Now, sometimes, and you know the phrase, sometimes less is more. And I think this slide shows it. A researcher in the Hebrew University wakes up in the morning and he wants to research something or do an animal trial or to create a prototype. He needs money. He doesn't have a guaranteed amount of money from the university, except for relatively small money. He has to compete with his colleagues, both in Israel, in Europe, and in the States, and he has to file for grants. So this, maybe that's why I call it less is more. He has less, but it makes him much better, and he has to compete all the time, and he has to make sure that his science is at the cutting edge of the technologies, and he's dealing only with the state of the art. So you can see here that the Hebrew University is number 3 in Europe when you measure the last 5 years in terms of getting grants from the ERC. A researcher, in order to be successful, has to have a good environment to work at, and he has to get the best student and the best PhD students helping him with his research. So all of this, fortunately, we have in Israel, but recently we got also another compliment from this survey that ranked Hebrew University as number 9 in the world in the universities that the researchers love to work at. Areas of expertise. Actually, we have almost everything that you can think of. You saw about brain research, I saw this morning, medicine, nanoscience, education, agriculture, clean tech, veterinary, we have everything. The only thing that is missing, we don't have the traditional engineering faculties. Some numbers about Yissum as a tech transfer company. We have only 28 employees. We are by far the largest tech transfer company in Israel in terms of activities. We have more than 7,700 patents covering 2,200 inventions. We granted along the years 560 licenses and created 74 companies. Now, when I give you the very simple information, we created 74 companies, we have to remember that this company grow from startup that employs 2 or 3 scientists to giant companies. So, for example, we have Mobilize with hundreds of employees. We have other companies with 40, 50 employees. And actually, if you want an interesting story, the Hebrew University actually created the entire seed industry in Israel. So the contribution of our university, not only that we produce excellent science, but we also make sure that the science will promote also the employment and the technological employment within Israel. The structure of Yissum is we are a separate company with a board of directors that is comprised mainly of business people. So we are obviously part of the university, and our shares are held by the university, but we also keep our own and separate entity as a business entity. Just to give you a sense of the number that we are dealing with, every year we have about 150 new patent applications. We get about 54 new patents granted, and this is another important part. The researchers in the Hebrew University, when they have a successful product and they get royalties, 40% of the royalties go to their pocket, 20% go to the research lab, and only 40% stays in the university. So this gives the especially additional incentive to the researchers to come up with great idea and to try to apply them to the industry. But this is not the only reason. I don't want someone of you to be confused. We do have a lot of researchers that are millionaires because of their invention. But I must say that even those scientists and the other scientists, their main goal is to get the Nobel Prize. The making money from the inventions comes second. But, however, those researchers and other researchers that communicate and work together with the industry, they can tell you that working with the industry in most cases, improves their own science, and the relationship with the industry and understanding the needs of the industry and what is going on in the industry contributes to their science. A little bit about our pipeline, just to give you a glimpse. We have about 20 drugs in different clinical stages, and you can see our share compared to the entire pipeline of Israeli companies. So you can see that on average we are about 1/3 of the Israeli biotech research in terms of new compounds is coming from the Hebrew University. Some famous success stories. I don't know if you are familiar with these companies, but we wanted to show you that out of 30 companies that we selected that are successful companies, 7 of them are already public companies, publicly traded companies. We have a global reach along the world with collaboration with the largest companies in the world. And now to our main success stories. We have a very successful drug for dementia for Alzheimer patients, marketed by Novartis, more than about $1 billion of sales, yearly sales. The second drug is the Doxil, ovarian cancer and other cancer indication. Now it's already $650 million. And this is one of the famous, if you'll ask, now today we started grade 1 in the Israeli schools. If you'll ask a student in elementary school what he knows about the Hebrew University, he'll probably tell you that he knows that in the Hebrew University we invented the cherry tomato. So it's basically right, but we are very famous for our new varieties and contribution to the agriculture industry. Also in peppers and the famous Mobileye, accident detection and prevention, and many other products that most of you are not familiar with, but smaller drugs that are sold for only tens of millions of dollars, so they are considered small products. But you have to understand that most of the universities in the US, even the most famous ones with the huge budgets of R&D, most of them don't have even one drug in their pipeline. Look at your home countries and ask yourself, the largest universities, how many drugs they have on the market, how many products they have on the market. Probably in most cases, you have a very good universities, but the answer is 0. So the achievement of one university, two blockbuster drugs on the market, many other smaller drugs, successful drugs, with many other products in different areas that are success stories around the world, it's a very unique achievement. Part of the reason to the success, we believe in long-term collaboration with the largest companies, and you can see here a list of the companies that we are collaborating with. We have successful projects with many of them, and a lot of potential also for research collaboration and for potential royalties in the future. As I told you before, we are also the largest university in Israel, so naturally we are the largest filer of patents in Israel, and we have very nice success in terms of getting patents for the application that we submit. Before I go to this slide, and actually this is probably the last topic of my lecture, if I summarize until now, we have excellent students from undergraduate to MSCs, PhD, postdoc. You already heard it yesterday from our president, but part of the reason that they are so good is the curiosity, is the challenge that they give respect to the researcher, but they are not ashamed to ask the questions and to go to the researchers and try to debate with what they are teaching them. We have a very good environment. We have incentives to our researcher. I hope that we have a very good tech transfer company for doing the tech transfer and taking the researchers to the real life and raising money to support them. And the last thing that I want to mention, sometimes even when you have the best science and the best team and the best people, you still need money to support it. So this is what you see here is a timeline of how it goes from academic projects until it gets to an independent companies. So here we have few ways to support the researchers in the stage of the applied research. We have our own internal fund from our own revenues. We call it a baby seed. We have long-term collaboration agreement with the largest companies, such as Roche, P&G, and GM, and the other that you saw. And we have also support from the government, and we have to tell a good thing about the government. They have special support program like the Kamin, Nofar, the Incubator, and Magneton that are supporting early stage research. And recently we initiated a new holding company supporting our companies in a later stage. So what is the bottom line from your perspective when you will go to your home countries? First of all, I want you to stay with a memory that Israel is not only a very good place to visit and that it produces excellent science, but also that we know how to take the science and take it to the real world and turn it into successful products for the benefit of the society. In case you are coping with any problem, so we have a wonderful team of the community affairs in the university. You can always approach if you need an advice, and even your universities, you can always refer them to us and we will try to help. We also have some collaboration with your home countries. So I wish you a lot of luck in your scientific life and the applied scientific life. And before I finish, if you heard my lecture and you looked at the slides, I'm going to show you a 4-minute movie. That it's a movie that we created in the organization of the ITTN that combines all our technology transfer institutions together. And in this movie, you will easily understand the contribution of the Hebrew University to the achievement of the Israeli communities in general. So I just a second.
Diverse research activity is taking place in 12 Israeli scientific centers, from Tel Hai in the north to Beersheba in the south. Research topics include medical devices, computer science, robotics, agriculture, chemistry, clean technology, and nanotechnology. Thousands of scientists generate ideas that either develop into successful startup companies or gradually mature at the R&D facilities of one of the world's leading companies. Biotechnology. Hundreds of scientists and physicians take up the challenge of pharmaceutical development to find a cure for serious diseases such as cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease, and others. These efforts have produced medicines such as Copaxone, Ozilect, Exelon, and Doxil. These drugs are now available to patients in over 150 countries worldwide. Clean technology, clean tech. Research in Israel varies and encompasses many fields. Clean and efficient renewable energy, desalination, purification, and improvement of water quality, energy conservation. Developments that were initiated in Israel's academic labs now play a major role in global technology and decrease our dependence on oil. Agriculture. Scientists at Plant Sciences Institutes have increased various crop yields by hundreds of %. These developments have made crops more resistant to various pests and extreme environmental conditions, and have provided them a much longer shelf life. Tobacco leaves are currently being used to develop an innovative method for human tissue reconstruction. Scientists are successfully dealing with the challenge of developing ecological pesticides. Israel's leadership in agricultural research translates directly into increased export. Medical devices. Complex spinal surgery performed by a robot. Fast sealing of wounds and cuts on the battlefield or at the scene of accidents. State-of-the-art imaging devices. A membrane for wrapping fractured bone that accelerates bone-building processes. Revolutionary devices for rehabilitating the disabled. These are only a few of the developments conceived in Israeli universities and clinical research institutes, which are now global stars in the field of advanced medicine. Nanotechnology. In academic nanotechnology laboratories, innovative ideas are translated into unique products in a variety of fields, minimizing the processors of the future, preserving their power while decreasing their energy consumption. New drug delivery methods, innovative lubricants, glass printing, revolutionary chips for advanced industries. Top-quality technological products are currently being developed in research labs across Israel. Israel's research capacity is the greatest resource at the country's disposal, serving as the building blocks for driving the state of Israel towards a future of advanced medicine, leading agricultural technologies, innovative new materials, and clean energies. The technology transfer company's proven ability to apply the advanced research results to industrial development is an unprecedented Israeli success story on a global scale.
Just as a concluding remark, Startup Nation is a nice name, but in the university we are trying to say that Startup Nation, we have many startups also in your home countries. So we want to say that we want to be a startup nation which is a science-oriented startup nation. So take this with you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for the wonderful talk. We do have time for a few questions. If you would like. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Sirase Suchalakipwong from Thailand. My question is about the money, like the fund management of your organization. Because of many myriads research and like inventions taking place in your institution, there must be some effective management of money to keep the research going on in every aspect. So as my country is a developing country, I'm looking up to your respectful works a lot, and so I would like to know about the money management of your organization in order to adapt to my country. Thank you.
The main source for funding for the research in the university comes from competitive grants. As I mentioned, our researchers apply for grants in Israel, in Europe, and in the States, and they are trying to get grants, and this is one of the sources. The other source is the collaboration with the industry that we are doing. Fortunately, we are a very successful tech transfer company, and we have very significant revenues, so we are using part of our revenues also to give an extra support to a good applied research. But in a university that does not have revenues from royalties yet, I would say that the presidents of this university have to bear in mind that with a relatively very little and limited investment in terms of money, you can create your own tech transfer activities, and along the years it will certainly prove as a worthwhile investment.
Another question? Yes.
My name is Ken from Thailand. I want to know from your opinions, is the compare between basic science and developed science such as engineering, medical, or another, which one do you think it is important? It is more important between basic science and developed science. Thank you.
As I said before, you cannot have applied research and applied good science without excellent basic science. So you cannot even. I can give you an example. Someone comes with a new molecule. The research, it took him 10 years to get to this molecule, and he had academic grants supporting him. Then he has to show that it works and to do animal studies and to do the toxicology and all the other experiments. This, we call it applied research, but actually it's the same streamline, it's the same researcher, it's the same work line of taking the research from the basic concept, getting the molecule, and take it to the market. So it's just a matter of where you draw the line. I cannot tell you what is better.
Hello, I'm Zhang Jingrong from China. I'm interested in the nanotechnology research in the Hebrew University and Israel. Can you give me some examples?
The most recent example that I can give you, we signed a nice agreement with the German Merck regarding new nanorods that are supposed to be implemented in every LED display and to create a more warm and more day-like light, and to also to improve the energy efficiency of any laptop or smartphone by doing different materials instead of the current liquid crystals. So this is just an example. You saw also the examples of the printing on glass. We have printing on solar cells, and we have projects like this. But we have many, so I cannot mention all of them.
Okay, so I think we can sum up this lecture by stating that it's the potential of transferring basic knowledge into the market is incredible, and we can learn from what Yissum does every day to all our lives and countries. And it's exciting when you can generate the money to fund your own research. It's really important. We have some announcement. First of all, the blue group needs to. Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you. So.